You ever have one of those moments where your gut tells you something's wrong, but your brain tries to smooth it over with logic? That was me on a Tuesday morning in May. Clear skies, birds chirping, nothing out of the ordinary. I'd taken the day off work to fix a leak in the upstairs bathroom, nothing major, just a few tiles and a dripping pipe. I wasn't supposed to be home. That mattered. At exactly 11:27 a.m., the doorbell rang. I was halfway through wrestling a pipe wrench when I heard it. Thought it was Amazon or FedEx, maybe something my wife ordered again. She had a habit of stress shopping, at least that's what she called it. I wiped my hands on my jeans and went downstairs. I opened the door. There he stood, delivery uniform, clipboard in hand. But he wasn't in a rush. No hurried glance, no neutral, here's your box energy. No. This guy smiled. A real smile. Like he knew me. Or worse, like he didn't care that I existed. He handed me a package. Medium box, unmarked. Nothing special. But then he said something that didn't sit right. Tell Madison I'll see her Friday, he said with a wink. Just like that. Friendly. Casual. Too casual. I froze. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who jumps to conclusions. I've been married to Madison for 8 years. We've had our ups and downs. What couple hasn't? But we had trust. Or I thought we did. So I played dumb. I'm sorry, I said, squinting. You said what? He smiled wider. Oh. I just meant, tell her I said hey. My bad, man. Thought you were someone else. He turned and walked off before I could ask another question. That package in my hand suddenly felt radioactive. I didn't even take it inside. I set it on the porch table and watched him drive off in his beat-up white van. No company logo. Just a magnetic sign with a barely legible name, Prime Quick Express. I'd never heard of them. Madison handled all the online orders. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice. But something about the way he said her name, with that wink, stuck in my ribs like a sliver of glass. That's when I started paying attention. That afternoon, I casually asked Madison about the delivery. Oh, she said, not even looking up from her phone, just a replacement charger for my work laptop. You know how cheap they make those things. Sure, I thought. Except she already had 2 spare chargers in her desk drawer. I knew because I bought them for her when she complained last month. But I said nothing. Not yet. That night, after she went to bed, I looked up the courier service. Prime Quick Express had no real website. No reviews. Nothing beyond a Facebook page last updated in 2022. The address listed was a P.O. box. Weird, right? Then came Thursday. I left work early. Told my supervisor I had food poisoning. I parked my car 3 blocks away from our house and walked the rest. At 10:48 a.m., the same white van pulled up. He knocked once. Madison opened the door before he even reached for the bell. No hug. No kiss. Nothing scandalous. But they talked for 10 minutes. Close. Too close. Her laugh sounded different, higher, girlish. Like the version of herself I hadn't seen in months. I filmed the whole thing from behind the neighbor's bushes. I felt ridiculous. But I needed proof of what? I wasn't sure yet. I just knew something was off. And the next day? She left her phone on the table to shower. That never happened. I glanced at it. Locked, but the notification banner told me enough. Friday's set. Can't wait. From someone saved as Chris, PXC. PXC. Prime Quick Express. That was all I needed to know. Something was happening. And my wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, was hiding it. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I had a plan to find out everything. And I was going to make sure, when the truth came out, that she wouldn't be the only one surprised. Because if she thought I was just some clueless husband she could play, she had no idea what was coming next. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. They weren't flashing neon warnings, more like quiet whispers in the corners of our life. Little shifts. Changes I dismissed as stress, new routines, or just Madison going through a phase. But the truth? I didn't want to believe it. Because when you love someone, your heart fights your eyes. It started small. About 6 months ago, Madison got oddly excited about online shopping. Not the usual sale at Target excitement. This was different. She'd wait for deliveries like a kid on Christmas morning. I'd come home to see boxes stacked at the door, and she'd rush to grab them before I could even ask what was inside. At first, I joked about it. Did we buy stock in cardboard? I'd laugh. She'd smile, say something vague like, just some stuff for work, or nothing interesting, don't worry. And I didn't. Because I trusted her. Then came the makeup. She started doing her makeup before deliveries. You might think I'm exaggerating, but But I'm telling you, she'd reapply lipstick and fix her hair around 10:30 a.m., almost like she had a meeting. I worked from home 2 days a week, so I noticed the pattern. Delivery around 11 a.m. every time. I asked once, casually, "Why are you getting all dolled up for FedEx?" She rolled her eyes. "I just don't like looking like a troll when people come to the door." Fair enough, right? Reasonable enough to shut down my suspicion. But it wasn't just the makeup. She started putting on perfume too. A specific one, floral, expensive, not the one she wore on date nights. A scent I hadn't smelled since we were dating. That perfume wasn't for me anymore. I knew it. I just didn't want to admit it. Then there was her phone. It never left her side. Used to be, she'd leave it charging in the kitchen while we watched TV or had dinner. Now it was always in her hand. Always face down. Notifications silenced. I joked that she was becoming a teenager again. She laughed. Said she just didn't want work emails ruining her evenings. Still, I caught her texting someone late at night once. I asked who it was. She said, "Just Rachel from HR." I nodded. But her eyes flicked left, her tell when she's nervous. I've known her long enough to see the cracks. Around that same time, our intimacy dropped off a cliff. I'm not just talking about intimacy. I mean the little things, how she'd lean into me on the couch, reach for my hand during a movie, or kiss my cheek when I walked past her in the kitchen. Those things disappeared, replaced by silence, avoidance, and that damn fake smile she wore when she was lying. I chalked it up to stress. Her job was intense. Mine too. Maybe we just hit a rough patch. Maybe, I thought, we needed a vacation. I even booked one, a cabin by the lake, her favorite. But she couldn't get time off. That was 3 months ago. She never tried to reschedule. And then came the deliveries that didn't make sense. Boxes arrived with no names. Some had nothing inside but crumpled paper. Once I opened one that had only a small card inside, no writing, just a red heart sticker. I showed it to her. She said it was a gift for a coworker's baby shower. But there was no baby shower on our calendar. No card. No wrapping paper. Nothing else. That night I couldn't sleep. So I checked our bank statements. It wasn't easy. She handled most of our online purchases. But I found something, multiple payments to a courier company I didn't recognize. Not USPS, not UPS. Something called PX Logistics. And they weren't for shipping out, they were payments received. Why would my wife be receiving money from a delivery company? That's when the puzzle pieces started clicking into place. And once that happens, you can't unsee the picture. The laughter at her phone. The missed date nights. The sudden obsession with looking good for someone who barely came to the door. Her mood swings. Her excuses. The way she'd get flustered if I asked where she was headed. Even the dog started acting weird. Our golden retriever, Max, used to bark at every delivery. No? He wagged his tail when that white van pulled up. Like he knew the guy. Like he'd seen him, more than I had. It crushed me. Not because I had confirmation yet, but because, deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to face it. I didn't want to accept that the woman I'd shared my life with, the woman I defended, loved, built a home with, might be lying to my face every single day. But denial can only hold for so long. After the Chris PXE message, I couldn't pretend anymore. I went from disbelief to cold, hard clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was being played. So I stopped guessing. I started preparing. They say the truth will set you free, but they never tell you how much it'll hurt on the way there. After the text from Chris PXE, my whole focus shifted. No more wondering. No more asking myself if I was imagining things. I was done doubting. I needed answers, hard ones. Cold, undeniable proof. And I needed it without tipping her off. So I got to work. The next morning, I bought a cheap motion-activated camera off Amazon. Same-day delivery. I told Madison it was for the garage because tools had gone missing lately. She barely reacted. Just nodded without looking up from her phone. I mounted the camera by the front door, nestled in a planter. Clear view of the porch, angled perfectly. I tested it with a few fake walk-ups. Worked like a charm. Then I waited. The next Friday, the one Chris mentioned, Madison called off work. Said she was feeling under the weather. Strange, since she was laughing with her friend on the phone an hour later, sounding anything but sick. At 11:03 a.m., the white van pulled up. I watched from my office window, far enough not to be seen. I could barely breathe. My hands trembled as I clutched my phone, watching the feed from the camera. Chris got out. Same guy. Dark hair, too confident. He didn't knock this time. Madison opened the door before he even reached the steps. What happened next wasn't graphic, thank God, but it told me everything. She stepped out, smiled, brushed her hand across his chest. He laughed. She said something and turned, leading him inside. The door closed behind them. They were in my house. I stopped the recording right there. I felt numb. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood in the hallway, listening to the silence of an empty home that wasn't mine anymore. Not really. Because once someone invites another man into your sanctuary, it's not a home anymore. It's a crime scene. They stayed inside for 47 minutes. At 11:50 a.m., the door opened again. Chris stepped out first, casually. Then Madison, barefoot, in a robe she never wore for me. She leaned against the door frame, whispered something I couldn't hear. He winked, got in his van, and drove off. She stood there for a moment longer, smiling. Then she went back inside like it was just another day. That night, after she went to bed, I watched the footage again. Every second. Then I downloaded the video, encrypted it, and backed it up to 3 drives. I labeled the folder, Truth. But I didn't stop there. I went through her email. I'd never done that before, never even thought to. But that night, I opened our shared laptop while she was in the shower. She'd left her account logged in. And there it was. Messages from an account labeled chris.psetdeliveries@outlook.com. Flirty, reckless, and cruel. One subject line read, "Next time you wear that little blue thing." Another said, "Still thinking about Wednesday smirking face." Inside the threads were references to times they'd met when I was at work or out with the guys. Mentions of packages that weren't real. Disguised delivery codes. He even called her Mad Doll. I felt sick. It wasn't just an affair. It was a system. A routine. A fantasy they lived inside, built on my schedule and my trust. And she never once acted sorry. Never once slipped up until now. I forwarded the emails to a private account I created just for this. Then I took screenshots. Hundreds of them. Every message. Every flirty emoji. Every appointment on her secret calendar. She thought she was careful, but she never expected me to be paying attention. The next morning, I played dumb. Made her coffee. Asked if she was feeling better. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Much better. I think I just needed a day to rest." I almost laughed. That day, I ordered a second camera, this one with audio. I installed it in the living room disguised in a smoke detector. It picked up everything. 2 days later, she called Chris and said, "You left your jacket here. Silly. Want to come get it when Mark's at work?" He laughed on speaker. "You got it, babe. Babe." That word echoed in my ears for hours. And that's when I knew it was time to stop collecting. I had enough. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. No, I wanted her to keep feeling safe. Keep playing her part. Because the longer she believed she was winning, the better it would feel when everything came crashing down. And I was going to make sure that crash would echo. Not just in her ears, but in every corner of her life. There's betrayal, and then there's what I discovered next. Cheating? That was bad enough. But what I started to uncover in the days that followed, it wasn't just about intimacy or lies. It was about how deep the rot had gone. How much of my life had become a stage for someone else's performance. And I was just the background character. After I got the footage and the emails, I didn't sleep. Not really. I'd lie beside Madison in bed, her back to me, her breathing slow and steady, and I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering how many times she had whispered, "I love you," while her mind was somewhere else, or with someone else. I started checking everything. First, her calendar. She'd always kept it synced to mine, something she once called our way to stay organized. Except now I saw recurring events labeled PXE client check-ins or return coordination, at least twice a week. Always midday. Always when I was gone. Next was her phone. I'd already seen the messages on the shared laptop, but I needed more. One night she forgot her phone in the bathroom. Left it on the counter while brushing her teeth. She stepped out for a towel. 30 seconds. That's all I needed. She had a hidden app. One of those disguised as a calculator. But when you typed the right code, boom, a secret folder opened. Inside, more messages. More photos. Some from our living room. Some from my office chair. A few even showed her wearing clothes I bought for her. Clothes she never once wore for me. My stomach twisted. But I kept going. I dug through our bank account. I've been letting her manage the finances for the past year. I trusted her. We had a rule. Anything over $500. We talked about it first. But I hadn't checked our statements in months. Why would I? Now I did. And it was like opening Pandora's box. There were hotel charges, not big resorts or vacations, but boutique spots, the kind meant for discretion. Room service. Wine. Uber rides with pickup locations that didn't match her work address or our home. I printed it all. I made a file. Receipts, screenshots, calendar exports. I even downloaded a GPS app that had been quietly syncing through her shared location history. Turns out she'd visited a specific address in a nearby suburb at least 11 times in the last month. I drove there once, just to see. It was a short-term rental house, one of those Airbnb-style places with keyless entry. I sat in my car across the street for 2 hours. At exactly 12:15 p.m., the white van rolled up. Madison stepped out of the passenger seat, adjusting her hair. I filmed it. They didn't stay long. Maybe 45 minutes. Then the van left, and she came out alone, walking with a bounce in her step like nothing had happened. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a fling. This was a lifestyle. A routine. And I'd been funding it. The next day, I spoke with a private investigator. Told him everything. He was calm, professional. Said he'd seen worse. That didn't comfort me. He gave me one piece of advice. Start moving your assets. Quietly. So I opened a new bank account. Transferred part of my savings, just enough to fly under radar. Changed the password on my investment accounts. Froze the credit card I knew she used. Set up alerts for every purchase over $50. That night she came home and asked if I could help her with a glitch on her shopping app. Something wasn't loading. I smiled. Said I'd look at it tomorrow. I didn't. I was done helping her cheat me from my own life. That weekend, I created a separate folder titled Legal. I contacted a lawyer I'd found through a friend, discreet, experienced in high-conflict divorces. We set a meeting for the following Thursday. In the meantime, I kept pretending. Pretending I didn't know that my wife of 8 years had been living a double life. That she had turned our home into her playground and used our money to keep her secret world running. I watched her make pancakes that Sunday morning, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. She kissed my cheek, thanked me for taking the trash out, and told me I was the best husband in the world. I nearly laughed in her face. But I didn't. Because the show wasn't over. Not yet. It wasn't the camera footage. It wasn't the texts. It wasn't even the hotel bills or the secret meetings. The final crack came from something much more subtle and far crueler. It was a Wednesday evening. Madison had invited 2 of her friends over for drinks. I think one of them was from her office, and the other I barely knew. I wasn't supposed to be home, had a gym class booked, but I skipped it last minute. I didn't tell her. I pulled into the driveway quietly and parked out of sight. I walked in through the back, through the laundry room, and into the hallway. They were in the kitchen, loud, laughing, a bottle of wine already halfway gone. I paused. I was about to say, hey, like always, but something made me stop. And then I heard it. Her voice, unmistakable, loud, tipsy, and venomous. I swear, Mark's so clueless, he wouldn't notice if I changed the locks and moved in a marching band. Laughter. Another voice chimed in. Seriously? He still has no idea. Nope. None, Madison said. Honestly, it's kind of fun at this point. It's like living a double life, and he's just too wrapped up in his boring little routines to notice. I froze. Then she kept going. Chris says the same thing. He's like, your husband's either the most trusting guy alive or the dumbest. And I'm like, why not both? They laughed again. And then came the part that broke something in me. I mean, if I told Mark I was having an affair with the delivery guy, he'd probably just ask if the package came on time. The room exploded with laughter. But something inside me went silent. There wasn't any anger. Not right then. No, what I felt was colder, clearer. I stepped back, slow and silent, walked back through the laundry room, and stood outside in the cold air for a long minute. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't even going to cry. I was going to end this on my terms. I went inside eventually, made just enough noise to let them know I was home. Madison barely flinched. She played it cool. Introduced me, offered a fake smile, poured me a glass of wine. I played along. Laughed. Asked her friend about work. But I wasn't there anymore. That night, I sat at my desk and opened the legal folder. I added a new subfolder, Phase 2. Inside it, I wrote a note to myself. She thinks you're clueless. Good. That's your weapon now. And then the real planning began. I reached back out to the lawyer. We started formalizing asset division. He told me we'd need evidence not just of infidelity, but misuse of shared funds. I had that. In spades. I started consolidating documentation, not just to use in court, but to make sure that when the confrontation happened, it would be public, permanent, and undeniable. I set a rule. Every action I take must lead to a consequence. I changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance, removed her from emergency contacts, reassigned passwords, quietly rerouted my work pay to a separate account. Then I planned the setup. We had an anniversary coming up, 8 years. She hadn't mentioned it, not even once. But I had. I brought it up casually over dinner. Should we do something special? She gave a nonchalant shrug. Oh, I don't know. Things are kind of busy at work. I smiled and nodded. Perfect. I told her I'd planned something low-key. Just dinner at home, maybe. But that wasn't the real plan. The real plan was already unfolding behind the scenes. I coordinated with a friend who did A/V setup for weddings. He owed me a favor. I asked him to help install a hidden projector rig in our dining room, wired to my laptop. A single button press, and everything I'd collected could play for the room to see. Now all I needed was an audience. So I invited her family, her parents, her brother and his wife, even her 2 best friends, including the ones who laughed at that joke. She thought it was going to be a surprise anniversary dinner. And it would be. Just not the kind she expected. Some men catch their wives cheating and throw clothes out onto the lawn. Some scream, cry, beg, or drink. I chose something else. I chose theater. Because if she was going to turn my life into a joke, then the least I could do was let her hear the punchline in surround sound. The week leading up to the anniversary dinner was surreal. Madison was in a strangely good mood. Not suspiciously so, just lighter, carefree. Almost like she believed she'd gotten away with it all. And maybe, in her head, she had. I watched her hum while folding laundry. Saw her paint her nails red, her special occasion color. She even texted me a meme one afternoon with a heart emoji. Part of me almost replied, I love you too. But I didn't. Because the countdown had started. Thursday morning, I finalized the guest list. Her parents, kind people, a bit distant with me lately, but always civil. Her brother David and his wife Allison, both smart, both suspicious by nature. Perfect. And her 2 best friends, Lauren and Kim, yes, the same 2 who had laughed at night in the kitchen. I told everyone it was a surprise dinner for Madison, 8 years of marriage, and I wanted to do something unexpected and meaningful. They loved it. Everyone RSVP'd. I scheduled it for Saturday night. Then I called my AV friend again. We did one last test of the projector rig on Friday afternoon. The dining room wall was blank and clean. When we hit play, the video showed crisp, sharp, undeniable. Email screenshots. The hidden camera clip. Location history. Even a slow scroll through her calendar, highlighting every false appointment. Then I made a final touch. A recorded voiceover, mine. Calm. Direct. Heartbroken, but composed. It said, if you're watching this, it means Madison made it through 8 years of marriage, and I made it through 8 months of betrayal. What you're about to see is real. No accusations. Just evidence. I made sure to end the video with a black screen that read, this is not a moment of revenge. It's a moment of truth. Saturday morning, Madison woke up cheerful. She made us pancakes again, played her favorite playlist. At one point, she leaned over and kissed my cheek. I'm so glad we're doing this tonight, she said. It means a lot. I nodded. Yeah, I said. It really does. By 6 p.m., the house was spotless. Candles lit. Madison wore a navy blue dress I hadn't seen in years. She looked like the woman I married. That's what hurt the most. Guests arrived by 6:30. Hugs, smiles, small talk. I poured wine. Madison glowed with pride. She loved being the center of attention, especially when the spotlight felt warm. By 7 o'clock, everyone was seated. Dinner served. Laughter filled the room. Then I stood, raised my glass. To Madison, I said, 8 years. A journey. A story. And tonight, I'd like to share just a small chapter of that story with you all. She smiled, blushing. Perfect. I tapped a button on my phone. The lights dimmed. The projector flicked on. Gasps echoed as the screen lit up. First slide, a smiling photo of us on our wedding day. Second, a shot of her laughing on our first vacation. Then silence. The video began. No one said a word. Not a single cough. Just quiet. Shocked eyes. Shifting in seats. Madison stared at the screen as if it were some alternate reality. Denial flickered. Then fear. Then shame. She looked at me. eyes pleading. I didn't look away. When the screen went dark, no one moved for a full 30 seconds. Then her mother stood up, quietly walked to the door. Her father followed. Her brother muttered something like, "Unbelievable." His wife didn't say a word, just stared at Madison. Kim, one of the friends, stood and whispered, "You said it was just flirting." Madison sat frozen. I walked to the table, took off my ring, and placed it beside her plate. Then I said one line. Just one. "You turned our marriage into a lie. I'm just returning the favor with the truth." And then I walked out. There's a moment after a storm where everything stands still. The wind dies. The rain stops. And what's left is silence. Heavy, absolute silence. That was my house the morning after the dinner. The chairs were still slightly pulled out from the table. Wine glasses half full. The projector was still warm. I stood in the doorway for a long time just looking at it all, like the remnants of some strange performance. And in a way, that's exactly what it was. Madison didn't come to bed that night. I'm not even sure where she went. All I know is that when I woke up, she wasn't in the house. Her car was gone. No note. No call. Just gone. Part of me expected a text, an apology, an explanation, even rage. But my phone was quiet. She had nothing to say. I made coffee, sat on the back porch, watched the sun rise through the trees. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not happiness. Not yet. But peace. The silence was finally mine. By noon, she came back. I heard the car door slam. The front door creaked open. I didn't move. She stepped into the kitchen and froze when she saw me. "You planned all of that," she said, not a question. "Yes," I said. "You humiliated me." "No," I replied. "You did that part yourself. I just gave it a stage." She didn't respond right away. Just stood there, arms crossed, not crying, not shouting, calculating. That's when I knew. The manipulator was back. Madison never liked losing control. And now, she'd lost everything. "Can we talk?" she asked finally, voice softer. "About what?" I asked. "About how long it was going on, or how much of our savings you used to fund it." She looked away. I didn't push. I didn't need to. I had the upper hand now, and I wasn't going to waste it. She tried a new angle. "I made mistakes," she said. "I got lost. But we can fix this. People make it through worse." That's when I laughed, not loud, not cruel. Just tired. "Madison," I said, "you didn't get lost. You took the map, burned it, and walked off with someone else, and you were proud of it." She flinched. I stood up and handed her an envelope. Inside, a copy of the separation agreement. Already notarized. Already reviewed by my lawyer. Fair, but firm. "I'm not looking for revenge," I said. "I'm looking for closure." She didn't open it. She just stared at me. "So that's it," she whispered. "Just like that?" "No," I said. "Not just like that. After lies, gaslighting, manipulation, and disrespect, this is long overdue." She didn't argue. Maybe for the first time in years, she had nothing left to say. She left again that evening. Took a small bag. Didn't say where she was going. I didn't ask. The house was quiet again. And this time, it felt right. Over the next few days, I began to clean up, not just of the house, but of my life. I changed account logins, canceled joint subscriptions, opened a P.O. box, got a new number. I even moved my office from the room we used to share to the guest room. Every small change felt like peeling off a layer of her and reclaiming a layer of myself. Madison sent one email a few days later. It wasn't long, just a few lines. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect it to end like that. I hope someday you can forgive me." I didn't respond. Because forgiveness isn't something you demand at the end of a performance. It's something you earn through truth. And we were long past that. One morning, I walked into my garage and saw the camera I had installed, the very first one, in the planner. Still there. Still recording. I took it down. Wiped the memory card. And for the first time in months, maybe ever, I deleted the folder labeled Truth. Because I didn't need proof anymore. I had peace. There's a strange calm that follows full exposure, not embarrassment, not anger. Just stillness. That's what I felt in the days after Madison left. The air felt cleaner. My house quieter. Even the fridge sounded softer when it hummed. But the world outside our walls hadn't gone quiet. Because news travels. Especially the kind people aren't supposed to hear. It started with a message from Allison, Madison's sister-in-law. "I don't know what to say. You didn't deserve that. If you ever need anything, seriously, we're here. Then her father called. Not for Madison. For me. He thanked me for how I handled it. Said he was ashamed. That he always suspected something wasn't right, but didn't have the courage to look closer. I just never thought you'd be the one to show us, he said. I didn't know what to say to that. But the biggest surprise came from Madison's job. Apparently, the man she had been secretly seeing, the courier, was also a contractor who handled deliveries for her office complex. I hadn't known that. But someone from her HR department found out after the dinner. Turns out, he wasn't even supposed to be on site that often. So the company launched an internal review. Madison was put on administrative leave. Her affair had officially become a liability. And just like that, the woman who once bragged about fooling everyone now couldn't fool anyone. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything. No cryptic status updates. No smug comments. But people asked. Old friends. Co-workers. Even my barber. And every time, I said the same thing. It was a long story. I just decided I didn't want to be lied to anymore. Simple. Honest. Enough. That was the beauty of it. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. The evidence had already spoken. The performance had played. Curtain down. One day, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Madison. 6 pages. No blame. No excuses. Just a long, meandering apology. Stories from her childhood. Fears. Regrets. Something about never feeling good enough. I read every word. Then I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and never opened it again. Because the person she had written it to, the man who once waited up for her, believed in her, defended her, didn't live here anymore. I was someone else now. Not broken. Not bitter. Just building. The paperwork took a few weeks. I signed every document with a clear mind. No hesitation. No revenge in my heart. Only direction. One evening, I received an email from a former coworker of hers, someone who had always seemed distant with me. She wrote, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I used to think you were cold, reserved. But now I realize you were just trying to hold things together. The truth has a strange way of surfacing. I'm glad yours did. I didn't reply. Not because I was rude, but because I didn't need to anymore. The world was slowly rebalancing, and I was learning how to breathe again. I joined a woodworking class. Not because I had any plans to become a carpenter, but because I wanted to build something real. With my hands. Something that didn't lie or hide or cheat. The instructor's name was Tom. Retired Navy. Sharp eyes. Big laugh. First thing he said to me was, You ever use a chisel before? Nope, I said. Well, get ready to ruin a lot of wood before it looks like anything worth keeping. We both laughed. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I laughed too. It came in a manila envelope. Thicker than I expected. The final divorce papers. I had been expecting them. My lawyer had said they were on the way. But still, when I saw the envelope sitting on the kitchen counter, something in me paused. Not out of sadness. Not even regret. Just gravity. I took it to the dining table. The same table where everything had changed that night. I placed the envelope down and stared at it for a while. Then I opened it. Page after page. Legal language. Asset summaries. Custody waivers. We had no kids, but the wording was still there, and signatures. Madison had signed everything. No notes. No messages in the margins. Just her name. Clean, sharp, almost mechanical. She was gone. For real this time. I picked up the pen. I didn't hesitate. I signed my name where it was needed, again and again, until the final box. Then I sat back and breathed. It was over. Not just the marriage, but the chapter of my life where I lived with a mask on, trying to pretend things were okay. The days of doubting myself, questioning what I saw, second-guessing my instincts, those were over too. This wasn't a victory. It was closure. And I had earned it. That evening, I went for a walk through our neighborhood. The same sidewalks I'd paced while on the phone with Madison, asking why she was late. The same trees under which I'd convinced myself that I was being paranoid. This time, I just walked. No thoughts. No phone. Just me and the road. I passed a neighbor who gave me a nod. He had heard, I was sure. But there was no pity in his eyes. Just understanding. When I got back, I made myself a simple dinner. Nothing fancy. Eggs and toast. And I ate it alone. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. Later that night, I opened my laptop and deleted the folder labeled marriage. Inside it had been photos, receipts, emails, the whole digital archive of our life together. For a long time, I had told myself it was evidence. Or memories. Or maybe both. But that night, I knew the truth. It was weight. And I was done carrying it. I didn't burn it. I didn't curse it. I just let it go. Click. Delete. Confirm. And it was gone. That weekend, I went back to the woodworking shop. Tom gave me a grin. Back for more punishment? He joked. Nope, I said. Back for the process. He nodded, understanding more than he said. We worked in silence that day. Sanding. Measuring. Building. At one point, I looked down at the piece I had started a week earlier, a simple bench. Rough, uneven, still full of splinters. But it was real. It was mine. And I was shaping it. Just like my life. You don't start over. You start from where you are with what you have and what you've learned. That's what I realized, standing on my back porch one morning, coffee in hand, watching the fog lift off the trees. It had been 6 months since the dinner. The divorce was finalized. The paperwork done. The silence no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like space. Room to breathe. Room to rebuild. I had moved out of the old house. Bought a small place just outside town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, old wood floors, a porch with creaky steps. But it was mine. Every nail, every chip tile, every paint stain on the garage wall mine. And I liked that. There were still hard days. Sometimes I'd hear a song that brought back something. A scent. A street corner. But they passed. Like clouds. And with time, they came less often. Tom, the woodworking guy, became a friend. Not just someone I saw at the shop, but someone I'd grab lunch with. Real talk. No small talk. One day he said, "You know, I've seen guys fall apart. Divorce. Betrayal. Most don't climb back out." I just nodded. "You did," he said. "You didn't just survive. You got sharp. Solid." That meant more than he probably knew. Eventually, I started writing again. Not blogs. Not rants. Just thoughts. Journals. Little entries with dates and headlines like Tuesday, didn't check her social media once, or Saturday, laughed without guilt. One entry just said, "Peace tastes like coffee on a quiet porch." And it did. Then came something I didn't expect. A letter. Not from Madison. From someone who had watched the dinner video. One of the guests, a friend of her brother's wife. She wrote, "What you did, it stuck with me. I watched a man take back his story without shouting, without burning down the house. Just standing in truth. That was powerful." She signed it Claire. No last name. Just an email. I didn't respond right away. Took a week. Then I wrote, "Thank you. Truth is quiet sometimes, but it echoes." She replied. We talked. First emails. Then calls. Then coffee. She was kind. Steady. Asked questions instead of filling silence. We didn't rush. We didn't label it. We just sat across from each other and told the truth, little truths, simple ones. One day she said, "You're not who I expected." I smiled. Neither am I. We're not a fairy tale. This isn't about replacing one story with another. It's about living forward. No masks. No performances. Just presence. Sometimes people ask if I do anything differently, if I could go back. I always say no. Because the version of me standing here now, the one who builds benches, who drinks coffee on quiet mornings, who laughs without checking who's watching, he wouldn't exist without every step, even the ones that broke him. And that, I think, is the real victory. Not revenge. Not drama. But freedom. Hard-earned. Deep-rooted. Unshakable. If this story spoke to you, hit that like button. It helps this message reach someone who needs it. Subscribe for more real stories, real healing, and the kind of truth we rarely say out loud.